insecurity fueled by an Islamist insurgency in northern Nigeria is one of the main reasons millions in the region have been displaced, and the violence is not letting up. This year, armed Islamist groups have reportedly ramped up their attacks. Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission says insurgents and bandits have killed more people in the first half of 2025 than in all of 2024. DW's Fanny Facsar sent this report from Borno State, where the armed Islamist group Boko Haram and an Islamic State splinter group are active.
We are in Borno State, in the heartland of an insurgency primarily driven by the militant Islamist group Boko Haram and its rival faction, the Islamic State's West Africa province, or ISWAP. Ali, not his real name, says he was a commander in ISWAP for almost a decade. 2 years ago, he left the Islamist group in an amnesty deal offered by the Nigerian government to reintegrate militants into society. But now he says he's ready to take up arms again.
The government promised us jobs. That was the agreement. I don't have anything. No food, no job. When we go back, we are going to attack. Fight a war so we can eat and feed our families.
Ali is from Maiduguri, Borno's capital city in Nigeria's northeast. After a few years of relative calm in the region, there has been a renewed spate of attacks.
Our husbands were killed because of attacks. Children are growing up without their parents. We are scared of a resurgence of attacks.
At least 12 people were killed and many injured in June outside of Maiduguri. A suspected female suicide bomber detonated her explosives at a market. All indications point to either Boko Haram or ISWAP as being behind the attack.
While no group claimed responsibility for this bombing, there's been a wave of recent Islamist attacks in Nigeria's northeast, especially here in Borno State, including attacks on military outposts and civilians.
Modu Omate survived a roadside bomb a few months ago on the way to his farmland. He lost one of his legs in the explosion.
I'm scared. 8 people were killed that day. The military is not doing enough. Everyone was relaxed because it had been peaceful, but that was negligence. The military wasn't pursuing the militants. That's why they're strong again.
Nigeria's military has been stretched thin, confronted with multiple flashpoints across the country, and reintegration projects like the one here are important. But Borno State Commissioner admits that the program is not perfect.
Reintegration is working. It's work in progress. It's not everything that former insurgents wants that will be given to them. We have the victims to deal with. If we over-resource the insurgents, the victims will say, okay, what about us?
But experts warn, tackling terrorism won't work without addressing poverty and unemployment.
If we are not taken care of, if the government doesn't deliver, the attacks will escalate. It will not end.
Ali claims he doesn't believe in ISWAP's ideology anymore, but he's still planning to rejoin the terrorist group. Many, he says, who surrendered with him are ready to follow suit.
And to get some more context and insight into this, we've invited Dr. Fatima Akilu onto the program. She led Nigeria's first national Countering Violent Extremism program. She's now the executive director of the Neem Foundation. That's an organization that runs field programs on rehabilitation, reintegration, mental health, and community resilience in the northeast of Nigeria. She's in Abuja today. Welcome to DW News Africa, Dr. Akilu. So in that report that we've just seen, Ali, a former terrorist, says he is ready to rejoin a militant group because he's not been able to find other job opportunities. Are there many more others like him?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I think the story of Ali really reinforces the complexity of rehabilitation and reintegration, given the context of what's going on. So yes, we have come across, and there are some that have that say that they want to rejoin the group, and there are others who have rejoined the group. But I don't think or get the sense that it's widespread. Having said that, there's a lot of things that have happened in the 10, 12 years since the insurgency has been at its height. One of the reasons that we also see this kind of resurgence and disillusionment with rehabilitation and reintegration is because Nigeria has embarked on one of the largest scale reintegration programs. They're trying to reintegrate about 100,000 or more insurgents, their families, and their victims. This is a big ask for a country that is grappling with serious socio-economic challenges, living in a context where a lot of people are suffering from increased poverty, food insecurity now, lack of access to education. A lot of young people are struggling to get jobs. So this is the wider context in which this reintegration and insertion is happening.
So then, Dr. Akilu, if I could actually just come in on that point that you're making, these reintegration programs that were introduced by the government were meant to essentially rehabilitate extremists, introduce them back into society. With all that you're saying is the context, have these programs been a success or a failure then?
I wouldn't say that it was a failure. I would say that there are a lot of gaps, especially on the reinsertion end, where you have former militants, people who've taken up arms against communities, now trying to be reinserted back into those same communities or communities that have suffered from their actions, which has been very, very difficult for victims because they see these militants who have been through a government program, who come with some training and some resources, perhaps to set up businesses where there hasn't been that emphasis on victims. So what I see is that there are gaps in the rehabilitation and reintegration chain. It's not victim-centered. It's overwhelmingly geared towards dealing with insurgents. But even that, I think as a country, we have yet to work out a proper legal framework that will guide and underpin this program. So what happens is that some people who have committed huge atrocities, they don't go through any legal process and they are just reintegrated into communities. So it's very difficult for communities to really accept them.
Right. And on that point, Dr. Akilu, sorry to cut you off, but you're actually leading me to my next question, which is that former President Buhari, the late President Buhari, faced a lot of criticism when he took the decision to grant amnesty to the militants. To the point you're making, they didn't face any sort of legal repercussions. With hindsight now, should these people have been made to face more serious consequences for their terrorist activities?
Well, there hasn't been any real concerted amnesty that has been given as far as ideologically driven terrorists are concerned in Nigeria. So even within the period of time that President Buhari was president, there was no real amnesty on offer. Amnesty is very contentious in Nigeria. It's widely debated, and rightly so, because there's also a lack of complete understanding of what the elements of an amnesty program should be, especially where people are not brought to justice who have caused so much havoc and so much harm to communities at large. I think that there are ways that we can, as a country, engage people who have taken up arms against the state, whereby people who have committed the most egregious actions are brought to justice and face the full weight of the law. What happens is that there is a compounding of and a blurring of the lines of who is the perpetrator, who is the victim, and people all get swept into this one big pot. I think for low-level offenders, for victims who have been caught up in the insurgency and probably forced to fight against their will, there should be some kind of forgiveness. So whether you call it amnesty or healing, so that the nation can heal.
Well, Dr. Fatima Akilu, we appreciate your insights here on DW News Africa. Thanks very much.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.